Hey, what's going on, guys? Kalamazi here, and this is going to be my, I guess, patchly video, whatever you want to call it, on should you play Warlock in patch 11.2. This patch's video's tone might be a little different from the last few patches, but regardless, today we're going to be covering Warlock, Destro, Demo, Aff, and both Mythic Plus, as well as rating if you should play it, how I feel about the class, and how it will maybe perform going into content in 11.2. Now, I will shamelessly plug here, we are pushing for 100k subs on the channel this year. If we can get that, that's great. If not, that's okay as well. I love you all the same. But if you aren't subbed, maybe consider subbing. That would mean the world to me. Regardless, though, we're going to go initially in raid content, then heading into M+ for each spec, giving my, I guess, general opinion and breakdown of how they're looking in their own respective settings. And off the bat here, we have probably the best spec overall in the upcoming raid, Demonology Warlock. Demonology has been in a, honestly, I'd probably say a pretty commanding position ever since the start of PTR. It had a pretty solid tier set early on, with Soul Harvester being pretty overtuned, got nerfed, buffed again, and now it's like fine for Soul Harvester. Diabolus is actually a little better for Demonology currently compared to Soul Harvester, but they're pretty good. Overall, it is a solid single target base spec with a lot of stacked cleave. Now, this raid tier is... There are cleave-based elements this raid tier, but a lot of them are stacked cleave. And at the same time, if you're in like a world first, even a higher end raiding setting, if you can make any fight that has ads spawning on it or whatever, more of a meat grinder fight where you can stack ads under the boss, funnel damage off the ads, onto the boss, something along those lines, you're in a pretty good spot. That's sort of what you want to do. Demonology can do that. That's what it's built to do. Single target with stack cleave, half your spells cleave baseline, even just passively. There's been some changes made to Demonology this tier as well. Your Tyrant's not as strong as it was before, but it empowers your pets for more raw gain, as far as they're concerned when they're active with Tyrant being out. A couple talent changes here and there have made things a little bit better quality of life-wise, shorter Biofiend cooldown. You've also got Tyrant extending a max of 10 imps. Pact of the Imp Mother's playable again now. They swapped that with Umbral Blaze. And overall, Demonology looks to be in a pretty good spot heading into Manaforge Omega. It is one of the higher simming single target specs. Like we said, a lot of these fights are patchwork single target based. And even fights like Lumathar here, for example, you can hit the ads as Demonology, or you can just say, hey, I'm going to hit the boss and do the most damage in the entire raid to the boss, and you guys can kill the ads. It's fine. Even on fights like Soul Hunters, where it's 3 targets, Destro and Aff are probably better there, but Demonology does stack cleave. They're pretty much stacked for nearly the entire fight. Other fights like Nexus King, Fractalus, for example, stack cleave and or single target. That is Demo's forte. So as far as Manaforge Omega and 11.2 is concerned, as of filming this video, I would say Demonology is definitely one of the S tier specs heading into the raid. A+, S tier, depending on how you want to order things. Looking very good as far as next tier is concerned. If you're a Demonology Warlock fan, awesome. Good for you. Have a good raid tier. If you're not, well, Destro and Aff also aren't in that bad of a spot. Speaking of Affliction, I want to say this is a pretty bad pull for me overall in raid testing. We swapped talents. I couldn't change builds fully. I'm deflecting here, but point being, this is before the buffs came into Affliction. There were some substantial buffs over the last couple weeks. Large buffs to Unstable Affliction, buffs to Dark Glare, very large buffs to Focus Malignancy, and in general, Affliction looks to be the second best single target spec Warlock currently has in the raid, behind Demonology. Soul Harvester Demonology is our second highest overall simming like build a demo. It's Diabolus number 1, Diabolus Demonology, Soul Harvester Demonology, and number 3 is actually Hellcaller Affliction, which is almost neck and neck with Soul Harvester Demonology. Now, obviously, there's varying damage profiles here. Affliction more dot-based. You can get a lot more spread cleave, council cleave on fights like Soul Hunters, for example, which is a council cleave boss. Could be very good there. Hellcaller Affliction, both Hellcaller and Soul Harvester have a very large amount of CD-based burst. Whether you're popping your Malevolence as Hellcaller or getting those Succulent Soul Shards for Soul Harvester, and getting good Rapture burst damage value. The buffs to Dark Glare, Focus Malignancy, Unstable Affliction, and all that have made Affliction honestly a pretty high single target burst spec. I've hit 9, almost 10 million burst single target base just self-buffed when it comes to opening up with CDs in dummy testing without Bloodlust. So Affliction looks to be strong this raid tier. There is a lot of stack cleave this raid tier, but Affliction can do stack cleave. It can do cleave in general, right? If you're just managing multiple dots, you can cleave onto multiple targets. Once again, Hellcaller does look to be your better single target spec for Affliction. However, that Soul Harvester profile that we saw in the past, like in Liberation of Undermine, on Vexy, on Rick Reverb, on the fights where you can get a lot of that stack cleave with ad spawning in, can be exceptionally strong this tier. There's a few fights where ads do spawn in. Forge Weaver, Araz, Soulbinder, Nosferatu, Nazindi, whatever his name is, that you have these ads spawning in on good timetables that Affliction can get that really strong Soul Harvester cleave. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Affliction played, like Soul Harvester Affliction played a couple fights, but at the same time, Hellcaller can be there too. Hellcaller has that 1 minute Malevolence Wither based profile that brings a lot of value on these fights, that if you can get sustained cleave like on Soul Hunters, you might see a decent bit of Affliction play this raid tier. There is obviously the issue of quality of life and the Rapture versus UA thing. Hey, you're preaching to the choir here. I understand. I can't change that. I'm just playing the game. But if you're a fan of Affliction, people have wanted an Affliction raid tier for a long time. It doesn't look to be as strong as Demonology, but it's not that far off. And if there is tuning pushed within the next week or so before the raid comes out, Affliction's right there as being, I think, like top 6 or 7 highest simming spec out of any class in the game right now, being Hellcaller based. So it's not in a bad spot. You definitely would put it in the A, probably high end of A, lower A plus tier if you're doing like a S, A plus, A tier list. But regardless, if you're a fan of Affliction, this is probably the best Affliction's looked heading into any raid tier in recent memory. Not saying you should play over Demonology on certain fights, but if you're not in like a super high-end setting, trying to push, high-end kills and all that, you are more than fine playing Affliction throughout the entire raid tier currently. And honestly, I'd be down to do so. And lastly, we have Destruction when it comes to Manaforge Omega and rating in patch 11.2. And honestly, Destruction's not in a terrible spot either. If you're looking to play Warlock and Manaforge Omega, spoilers, I think it's a pretty good choice. It's not as strong as Affliction or Demonology in single target. It's not that far behind, but what Destro can offer is a very, very strong burst-based cleave profile. Destro, at least in the past, was known as the king of 2-target cleave, right? On fights where you get a Havoc on an ad, or hit the main boss, Havoc an ad, and blast the ad into the ground. There are a handful of fights this tier that are constant cleave-based. Soul Hunters right here being one of them. There's 3 stack targets, Demonology and Aff can get value here. Destro can just play single target with Mayhem and Rolling Havoc, and just patchwork these bosses down, have plenty of passive cleave, and just cleave everything into the ground. It's sort of how Destro is. Whether you're playing Diabolist or Hellcaller, on this fight, I lean more towards Hellcaller. Depends a bit on the setting. Diabolist seems to be higher currently in single target. On fights like Fractalist, maybe fights like Lumathar, if you're doing mostly single target based damage, you might play it there. But at the same time, Hellcaller has that strong 1 minute Malevolence profile on fights like Soul Hunters here, on fights like Forge Weaver, Araz, Soulbinder, Nosferatu, whatever his name is. You might want that Hellcaller based profile. It's not super high end single target damage, but it's not terrible either. Your tier set's actually relatively strong. As Destro, you can maintain a pretty high uptime on the actual Diabolist eyeball percent damage increase, or intellect increase, I should say. And when it comes to Hellcaller, it builds more upon your Malevolence, giving you more and more stacks of Wither whenever you pop your Malevolence, guaranteeing basically that acute window where they all start ticking down. You can generate a crazy amount of stacks of Wither, which on fights like Soul Hunters gives just so much value. You've got 3 targets with 35 plus stacks of Wither, and you do so much damage. So honestly, every single spec of Warlock looks solid this tier, and every single one has little niche bonuses, little niche things they can do on certain fights where if you need that damage profile, you can play it. Now, unlike Lumathar, the second boss in the raid, where you have to break the walls, are you going to play Destro on that fight, or just play Demonology and burn the boss down? Probably just burn the boss down. Is this boss right here, Soul Hunter, is going to be a hard boss in general for the raid? Probably not. It's an optional boss. But regardless, they have potential in these fights. You're likely playing Destro on this fight, maybe Affliction, but the fights look fun, they look good, and it feels like this is the first raid tier in a while where all 3 Warlock specs have been like playable, competitive, and have differing damage profiles you can play on whatever fight you want. Now, shifting gears here, Mythic Plus. Demonology has been the frontrunner for, I'd say, the vast majority of PTR. The Diabolist tier set was pretty strong at the start. Soul Harvester was very, very strong at the start. Diabolist received a 100% buffed the tier set 2 weeks ago, then it was reverted back to basically what it was beforehand a week later, and the recent reversion of the Diabolist tier set in conjunction with the Soul Harvester tier set nerfs and tuning has made Demonology, it's good in M+. Let me explain. So when it comes to like mid-tier average pug keys, if you're doing a weekly 10s or 12s, Demonology brings a very consistent cleave profile. We talked about it in the raid section. Every spec, or basically every spell Demonology has, the majority of them, just cleave. Whether it's passively or you're imploding imps onto a certain pack, right? You can cleave with the vast majority of Demo's profile. Abilities like Ruination from your Pit Lord spawning in for Diabolus also further amplify that. They turn your spells into more empowered cleave-based spells. The demons themselves cleave. Demonology's damage post-tuning, though, in M+, is solid, probably on the upper end of A tier, but not A+ tier, and probably not S tier. Maybe on the lower end of A+ tier for damage. But there's two issues here. Number one, Affliction's better. Maybe three. Number one, Affliction's better. Number two, it doesn't really excel at any one thing. It's good at stacked AoE, it's good at single target, but it's not exceptionally strong at any one thing. It's not funneling insane damage. It's just there doing solid damage, solid, consistent damage. Sort of how BM Hunter is. But there are other classes that are just better, that do higher damage at certain points and are more consistent. At the same time, Warlock is plagued with the issue, like most classes in the game, where they don't really bring a whole lot of utility to M+, and that in conjunction with like a solid profile, but not like an exceptionally strong one where you're blatantly overtuned and need nerfs like Marksman Hunter, sort of makes it, well, okay, they bring good damage, but do they bring utility? Do they bring Mark the Wound? Do they bring Lush? Do they bring AI? Do they bring PI? Do they bring Fort? The answer is really no. You never needed a gateway to time a key in a world per setting. Hellstones are nice, but you don't really need them. As far as battle reses, that's great. Anybody can battle res now. So there's not really like that party buff of Sky Fury or Shout or Mark, AI, Fort, whatever you're looking for, that other classes bring utility-wise. Warlock doesn't have that. Hopefully in Midnight we get some way to have a bit more group utility. Maybe like Mass Curses would be cool, but either way, this is sort of a blanket statement for all three specs here. Warlock is a bit lacking in the utility department. If you're looking for like the best spec when it comes to pugging 10, 12 keys on retail or when the patch goes live, it probably honestly is Demonology. It's solid, it's consistent, it's not incredibly flashy damage, but it's good. It's consistent, and you'll put out good damage playing the spec at a average to above average level with relative ease. Affliction, however, is where things get a lot more interesting, and this is sort of popped up over the last week or so with the buffs to Unstable Affliction, the buffs to Dark Lair, and the big buffs to Focused Malignancy. Affliction, whether it's Hellcaller or Soul Harvester, has been known to have really strong on-demand cleave bursts, some of the like AoE bursts, some of the highest in the game. The problem with Affliction for a while has been a mix of, once again, Warlock lacks utility, Affliction also lacked a bit of like single target damage, it lacked a bit of like priority damage. That has changed a good bit due to the buffs to Unstable Affliction, Dark Lair, and Focused Malignancy. Affliction can bring one of the better funnel specs, or one of the better funnel damage-based profiles in the game to Mythic Plus. Not as high as some other classes, but probably third or fourth highest overall. And you also bring a very solid amount of burst AoE. Now, Affliction is plagued by the issue of Violate being stuck in Burning Crusade level of quality of life, having the multi-dot or refresh multiple agonies and AoE manually, and also the issue of not really having cooldowns every single pack. There's times where if you dump your cooldowns, your minute-based ones and Soul Rot and such, onto a pack and it dies so fast due to your burst, you'll go to the next pack without cooldowns or only a Violate, and you'll be doing tank damage. And higher keys, not as much of the issue, or as an issue because you can sort of plan that out ahead of time, but regardless, if you can get value out of Affliction, if you can get your Withers rolling, your Agonies rolling, your Soul Rot rolling, pop your Malevolence and get value out of your Withers, your Wither stacks, your Black and Soul damage, and that pack lives long enough to get basically full value out of it, Affliction is exceptionally strong in those settings. You can funnel adds down very easily as well with Focused Malignancy buffs, Haunt, Shadow's Embrace, they all do that bit of extra prio funnel damage, generating resources via Cold of the Week, via Dark Harvest, and it puts Affliction in an interesting spot. I feel like Affliction we're towards the end of the PTR here, and it feels like Affliction has definitely jumped a rank or two when it comes to overall M+ rankings. It's not meta. I'd say it's definitely actually A+ tier. It might be on the mid to higher end of A+ tier, but the odd quality of life in conjunction with some pulls having just very little damage because your CDs aren't really like, it's just a clunky sort of CD window. We really need Soul Eater's Gluttony back, giving you half a minute Soul Rot. That, and just the fact that Lock is a bit lacking in utility, I put it in like the lower end of A+ tier due to all of that. But the damage is good. Are you going to bring utility like a mage does? No, but nobody does in the game. We need to fundamentally redesign some classes' utility at some point. Maybe that happens, maybe it doesn't, but it's getting to the point in M+ where it's not just damage in M+. It's utility, it's group comp, how you fit the comp, how you fit the dungeons, how you fit that season's pool. I think Affliction fits this season's pool pretty well, actually. There's a lot of heavy AoE, mass pull potential, but when you look at that in conjunction with the lack of utility you bring and the weird city cycling at times, things do get a bit more awkward. Regardless, though, if you're looking to play Affliction Warlock and M+, this is probably the first tier in a while where Affliction's going to feel good in M+ playing Hellcaller. Even Soul Harvester, not as high overall in like single target damage or overall AoE, but it's more of a front-loaded profile. We've seen it on fights and raids like Rick Reverb and things where when ads spawn in, you pop your Soul Rot, your Seed, your Vile Taint, and you nuke these ads into the ground. Same thing for M+, whether you're playing Soul Harvester. Hellcaller brings a bit more of like a bit more of a, I guess you can say, sustained rampy profile, but you still get a lot of burst damage with Vile Taint and Soul Rot windows. So if you're a fan of Affliction and want to play it in M+, this is the first tier in a long time where I'd say, honestly, yeah, give it a shot. It's a lot of fun, and low-key, I think it's probably better than Demonology. Maybe not as a whole, but in the higher keys where you can get more value out of things, if you can like pre-plan pulls and know what you're pulling and all that, yeah, I'd probably give Affliction the nod. Not as consistent as Demo, and probably not as good as like mid-tier keys and average pug keys, but it's def there. And honestly, it's fun to play. Don't hate me for saying that. All right, listen, I know this footage is blurry. I had to go back and pull a video off YouTube from like 2 tiers ago. This is like a year ago. My beard is long. I look terrible. I actually wasn't even wearing that shirt today. I wore it yesterday, but I digress. If you've played Destruction in M+ for the past 7 or 8 patches, it's the same thing. Not necessarily even in a bad way, but Destruction, I really haven't played it much this PTR because Aff and Demo have gotten more changes. Wanted to play that. They're just more exciting in M+, I feel like. And not saying Destro's bad. It has that stat cleave profile, or it has that mass AoE profile, where if you come in, you're pulling around Infernal, these mass pulls, the lock's got Infernal, let's pull. You can blow the whole world up. You can do so much damage in mass AoE with Random Fire, with Cataclysm applying Withers, with Malevolence, with CDF extending Withers. You can do an insane amount of damage. But when it comes to like mid-tier keys, average pug keys, even getting into like, you know, branching out a bit more from that, getting a little higher, a lot of groups don't pull around that. A lot of groups don't make those pulls or have those routes planned around Destro's Infernal and its cooldowns, right? It's a lot. It's really the reason as to why you see it a lot like in MDI and TGP based settings in these mass pull scenarios, but not really a whole lot in pugs. And people try and play it in pugs and they're wondering why the damage is so bad. I guess I pulled that pack. I didn't notice that. It's because you're not pulling around Destro CDs like they are in MDI, like they are in TGP. If you're doing that, yeah, it's exceptionally strong. But if you're not, it's exceptionally awkward in these average pug keys where you're pulling one pack, doing mediocre, less than mediocre damage, and wishing you pulled more because you're ready to blow everything up, but no one's pulling more than one pack at a time. That is the case for Destro this time around as well. When it comes to Hellcaller, Diabolus is still just not really playable. They broke the functionality for it in 11.0, and it's probably better this time around, but not insane. The Diabolus tier set's probably pretty good in Plus, but it's bugged. The patch is live in less than a week, and it is bugged. Very unfortunate, but it is what it is. The tier set does not fling the eyeballs whenever you cast Rain of Fire with Demonic Art. Hopefully that's fixed. But regardless, if you're looking for that mass AoE profile that you've seen in MDI, in TGP, Destruction Warlock will still have that. The tier set for Hellcaller builds upon Wither and Malevolence, making it even better than it was last patch. It'll still be a pretty high-end overall M+ spec, but you gotta factor in the lack of utility. You have to factor in the issues of average mid-tier pug keys and all that not being anywhere near as strong. If you're not pulling around your Infernal, things are awkward. On the high end, I think this is probably like still putting it on the lower end of A+ tier, but it's more comp dependent. And if you're taking into consideration comp and pathing and everything else, also utility, it's fine. It's worth playing. You have the potential to play Destro and do insane damage, but if you're not pulling around it, it's sort of awkward. But at the same time, you can play Affliction or Demonology. They have different damage profiles that are maybe a little bit better in those settings. Demonology lacks a relevant kick with Axe Toss and everything else, but regardless, if you've played Destro for the past anywhere in the past 3 or 4 years, guess what? It's nearly the same thing, which is both a blessing and I guess a curse. So, to summarize all this, overall, if you're looking at playing Warlock in patch 11.2, maybe interested in the class for the first time, I would definitely say give it a shot. This looks to be the first patch in a while where Lock is actually tuned pretty well on the higher end of most things, and plus you're going to be a bit lacking utility. You're not going to be part of the meta comp, at least in this current point in time, but you're still doing a good bit of damage, and unless you're at a point where you just want to play the meta class and push for point 1 title, I think Lock's a pretty good choice to play, and it's pretty fun. We haven't had Aff being good in M+ in a while, which is solid. Demonology is still Demonology. It's good, consistent cleave damage. If you want to melt the whole world with Destro and hierarchies, you can do that. As far as rating is concerned, Demonology looks to be overall the highest enemy spec in single target right now, if not very close to it. Some classes are sandbagging a little bit from what I heard. I don't know. We'll see where that goes. Even if Demonology gets hit a little bit, Affliction is still very good in single target, top 7 or 8. Destro's also fine, and they all bring different damage profiles that can be used and, well, put to good use this raid tier with the varying damage settings we're going to see on things like Soul Hunters, Fractalus, Nexus King, Raz, even Nosferatu. They're all like good cleave-based fights, but you can get stack cleave if you want. Our tier sets are fun. They're sort of passive, but still fun. You fling eyeballs, you summon in Demons Diabolus, which flings the eyeballs. You spawn a dude in melee that thrashes around, gives you damage. Also generates soul shards for Affliction, which feels great. It does help some quality of life there with Affliction shard generation. And as far as Hellcaller is concerned, it pumps up Wither. You do more cleave-based damage with Wither. Wither is a fun spell. It's cool seeing dots do damage. It's weird that Destro is the best dot-based spec in the game right now, but hey, I digress. It is what it is. If you haven't played Warlock before, or considering playing it for the first time, I think 11.2, with current tuning, is probably one of the better patches to give Warlock a shot. It looks to be a fun raid tier. It looks to be a good Warlock raid tier. It looks to be a fun M+ season as well. Fingers crossed things stay the same, but I'd say certainly it's worth giving Warlock a shot in patch 11.2. Thanks for watching, guys. That wraps it up. Hopefully it helped clarify on certain things for you guys. Maybe you enjoyed a little bit of the video and want to play Warlock now. That's sick. That's awesome. If not, that's okay. But I want to give you all an accurate look at how I think Warlock's going to be heading into patch 11.2, both S3 and Mana Forge Omega. I think we're in a good spot. We're not like meta and M+, but honestly, I think Blizzard's going to need to take a step back and look at M+ utility and possibly redesign certain things, honestly, over the next few probably expansions, because there's some disparity between classes. It's just getting too much with M+ being as demanding as it is currently. So we'll see where that goes. Still good damage though in the raid. Hey, you also look pretty good. If you guys want any weekly Warcraft add-ons and profiles on the video, links to Twitch and Discord up here, both down below in the description. At the same time, like always, a huge thank you to my supporters on Patreon for all support, guys. Thank you all a million times. Like always, I greatly appreciate it. If you're looking at supporting on Patreon, should be a link up here as well as down below in the description. Yeah, I mean, I'm pumped for it. I think we're far enough in the PTR where we're likely not getting any changes to Warlock. Probably no more class tuning. If there are, hopefully it's not enough to knock things down to the point where it's like, oh, it's a 1 Warlock raid tier again. And oh, our damage is subpar and plus again. But if it does happen, well, that would make sense because that is the curse of Warlock. So we'll see where it goes. Thanks for watching, guys. And I'll catch y'all again soon on stream. Peace.